Members of the audience, there are the agendas for this evening's meeting on the back if you don't have one and you want to grab one. The meeting of the Kern County Planning Commission is called to order. Madam Secretary, will you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Ashley?
Here.
Commissioner Louie? Commissioner Poole?
Here.
Commissioner Garcia? Commissioner Sprague? Ms. Oviatt?
Here.
Mr. Hall?
Here.
Mr. Murphy?
Here.
Ms. Simon?
Here.
Thank you. So the first thing we're going to do tonight is present a resolution acknowledging Scott Denny for his 30 years of service with the Kern County Planning and Natural Resources Department. So Scott, would you like to come up here? And Commissioner Sprague is going to go ahead and present you with the resolution. How does it feel to be on that side of the mic?
Safe.
Good answer. Yeah, state and spell your name for the record.
Happy to. Also, I can say what I'd like to say now,
Oh, no.
but I've still got work tomorrow.
One more day.
One more day.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm really sad that you're leaving and retiring, but happy that you are retiring for your own health and your family and greener pastures to come. But tonight's a special night for the Planning Department as well as the Planning Commission. You've had just years of wisdom to deliver to us. And if we've had a problem, you've always laid it out to us the way it is, factually, on the table. And we so much appreciate your honesty and your integrity with everything you've done for this Planning Commission, as well as in the Planning Department, and with the general public and everything that you've done as far as helping them, answering their questions, figuring out their projects, what will work, what won't work. When I've had questions that the public has asked me as a planning commissioner, what should I do with this or what should I do with that? How should I handle that? I always pulled out my phone and called Scott Denny, and he's Johnny on the spot. And if he didn't know the answer, which he mostly knew, he would get it and call me back and explain it to me thoroughly. And I would take it to the people that asked me for the information, and they just go, wow, this is just wonderful. This is the way public service should be. So it pains me to see you leave, but I'm sure that there are competent people in the Planning Department that are going to follow in your shoes and continue to help us do our job the best we can, the way it is supposed to be, and to help the general public of Kern County as well as the planning departments up and down the state. So I just want to thank you for all you've done for me and all you've done for the Planning Commission as well as the Planning Department. So we've got a little resolution for you to kind of send you off, and I'll read it into the record. This is a resolution whereas in June of 1988, Mr. Denny was hired as a building plans technician and with the Planning and the Development Services Department, and in the years that followed, Mr. Denny's hard work, dedication, and exceptional performance were recognized with his promotion to the positions of junior planner, assistant planner, associate planner, supervising planner, ultimately the position of Planning Division Chief of the Planning and Natural Resources Department. And as Mr. Denny promoted, he was recognized for numerous traits, including professionalism, attitude, integrity, exemplary customer service, attention to detail, and willingness to help others. And during his career with the department, Mr. Denny gained an exceptional and unmatched knowledge of Kern County zoning ordinance and Surface Mining and Reclamation Act process. In 2009, Mr. Denny attained the distinction of a certified planner from the American Institute of Certified Planners and Mr. Denny's personal files replete with letters of appreciation, thanks, and recommendation from private citizens, engineering companies, and elected officials for his responsiveness and assistance in responding to project questions and providing clarity to planning processes. And Mr. Denny leaves an enduring legacy of integrity and commitment upon his retirement from the department, and he will be missed both professionally and personally. Now therefore it is resolved that the Planning Commission of the County of Kern, State of California, does hereby honor and commend Scott Denny upon his retirement after 30 years of dedicated service to the Kern County, and extends its warmest wishes to Mr. Denny for his family and his retirement, adopted 4/26 of 18. It says 16, but it should be 18.
That's that's just poor handwriting by me.
Oh, okay.
Apologies.
Okay. At any rate, we are giving you this resolution tonight, honoring you and what you've done for everyone, especially the general public, but for helping us make the right planning decisions for the applications that came in, and make the right decisions for people upon this dais. I'm proud of the Planning Commission. I'm proud of being there for I've been 20 years as a planning commissioner, 5 years with the city and 15 years with the county, and I'm proud of what I do, and I really enjoy it, along with the general public and the people that I meet, and the knowledge I've gained in general planning and ordinance laws, EIRs. It's amazing the knowledge that you can gain in having a position like this. So, Mr. Denny, I'll miss you, especially in the Mining Act area, but I'm sure there's someone in the planning department that can pick up and run the show for us in that department. So I applaud you, and again, I hate to see you go, but you've been a wonderful friend.
Thank you, Commissioner Sprague and the rest of the commission. Commissioner Louie, it's nice to see you.
Good to see you.
If I remember correctly, and it has been a while since I've been here, I think I'm supposed to give a brief or summary presentation at this point in time, which is something I've never been very good at. But what I should say, after Commissioner Sprague, is something that I had always wished from sitting over where Craig Murphy's at, that I had heard, or I wish I had heard at this dais, but never did in the, in the 8 or 9 years that I was here, and that was simply somebody to come up and after a nice presentation such as yours, and I couldn't have asked for anything better, just for somebody else to come up and say, ditto. Which is really what I'd like to say to Commissioner Poole, to be a brief and concise summary presentation. But I've got to do a little bit more than that. I have to thank everyone, and I have to thank Kern County, the department, every individual that I've worked with, some of which are here tonight, some of which are not. It has been a wonderful place to work. It's provided a very challenging job, a very unique job, a very creative job, one with the staff that's here, correct, Carrie, that a person could only wish or hope to have. And as I tend to get emotional in these things, I had it. I had a wonderful job, and I learned a lot from it. I think I was very well suited for it. I had started working for a company out of college that is something I started with, literally taking things apart and putting them back together. But after working them for a short period of time, I realized it was the wrong place for me. I can just honestly say now that when you get hired out of college do not work for a company called Whoops. The Washington Public Power Supply System is not where you want to be. So I came home to Idaho. But my wife got a job in California, and she said I could come with her. So I did. And as a result of that, I have had a wonderful career, a wonderful marriage, been able to acquire a lot of things that we talk about Bakersfield being able to provide. 2 happy children, of which I have 1 tonight. I sent the other one out to work. Got to keep that going. But in the end, I don't think I would have changed anything. It was the best job anybody could have ever had, with the best people either working for the public, the commissioners, the co-workers. Couldn't have dreamed for more. So with that, I'll be wrapping it up. That's my brief, concise summary. And again, I think you did, I really appreciate the sentiment you expressed. I would have enjoyed saying ditto, but they won't let me say that at this point in time. So thank you again.
Mr. Denny, if you could wait for one moment. Mr. Sprague, Commissioner Sprague, we appreciate you saying that about the department, but I want you to be clear that no one can replace Scott Denny. Scott's depth of information, first of all, you should know he never gets emotional, ever. So, you know, this is like, we're clear that he cares about us because he is getting emotional. He can't be replaced because he brings years and years and years of, as he says, taking things apart. And in this case, it was a zoning ordinance, and actually figuring out what did we intend when we adopted it, and how can we be business friendly. And as Supervisor Maggart likes to say, the gates always swing open. It's because of Scott. Scott always starts from the gates swing open for business. How can we make it inside the legal limits? And how can we sort that out? It's irreplaceable. And I can tell you that Scott's office was like a traffic flow in and out all day long, always, of planners, division chiefs, me. I did cut in line, I admit, and people who came to ask him, Scott, what did we do? What do we do? Do you have any ideas of what to do? And his email, the same way. And we are giving him a rousing send-off tomorrow night, and I cannot tell you the number of people in the county who are like, you know, can we come? Because we don't know what we're going to do without Scott, so we have to have one last. The other distinction of Scott is his movie quotes. Scott, I'd like you to leave us with a movie quote. Your favorite movie quote for the commissioners, which we would not allow you to normally do in your presentations, although you did sneak them in over the years. So this is your chance.
Just one?
You can have as many as you want.
Okay, because if you don't ask, you don't get. Okay. That's the skillful art of negotiation. One that I thought was always good when work was busy and things just didn't seem to have a light at the end of the tunnel was the panic one. It's Fred Thompson, Hunt for Red October. This business will get out of control. It'll get out of control, and we'll be lucky to live through it. I felt like that quite a few times. The other one that was quite popular with staff was the one that always spoke volumes. And Strother Martin, Cool Hand Luke, speaking from the top of the berm to Paul Newman. What we have here is a failure to communicate. Some men you just can't reach. Kind of like what we had here last week. Well, that's the way he wants it. That's the way he gets it. I don't like it any more than you men do. And that's the way I would like to leave it. I always believed in open communication, but despite the best we could, some people just didn't get it. We tried, and that's all we could ask is to try. And I think that's the closing part I'd like to say is, that sums up what I tried to do with everything is, I tried, which is all we could ask. So, thank you, Lorelei.
Thank you, Scott, for all of your hard work. We will all miss you, but we wish you a very, very happy retirement. And come back and visit. You know where we are every other Thursday night.
They say life is greener on the other side of the fence. I think you're going to live that in that pasture.
All right. Are there any additional announcements from staff or commissioners? Seeing none, we will move on to approval of the minutes of our last meeting on April 12th. You've all received a copy. Unless there are any changes, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
If there are no changes from the commission, I would make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Sprague.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
All ayes, motion carries.
We do not have any cases that have been withdrawn or requests for continuance, so we will move on to the consent agenda. Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. These are items scheduled before your Planning Commission, which are being recommended for approval by staff, and the applicant has been informed of any special conditions and has no objection. The hearing on these items may be expedited if no member of the commission or audience wishes to ask any questions on the case. We have one case on consent calendar tonight. This is case number 2. This is specific plan amendment number 4, map 198, zone change case number 7, map 198. The applicant is John Lance. This project is located approximately 4.5 miles east of the incorporated city of Tehachapi in the unincorporated community of Cameron Canyon. The request before your commission tonight is to amend the adopted Cameron Canyon ridgeline boundary as delineated in the Cameron Canyon specific plan. The boundary itself marks the demarcation of where new wind turbines can be constructed adjacent to the Cameron Canyon ridgeline. The proposal also includes a requested zone change on 3 parcels. This is worded a little bit differently than you've seen before because the parcels themselves are split zoning. So the request for the zone change include change in zone classification from E20RS and A to E20RS WE for one parcel. On another parcel, the request includes a zone change from E20RS WE and A to A WE. And on the third parcel, the request includes a zone change from E20RS to E20RS WE. Implementation of the amendment and zone change, including the amendment to the Cameron Canyon specific plan, would authorize the potential placement of wind energy turbines within an approximate 30-acre area in which turbines are currently prohibited. The recommendation for your commission is to advise your commission to recommend the Board of Supervisors to approve the specific plan amendment as requested, approve the zone change as requested, and adopt the suggested findings as set forth in the draft resolution. That completes the reading of the consent calendar.
Thank you. Is there any member of the audience that would like to speak on item number 2? If you do, we will pull that from the consent agenda and hear it in its regular order. Doesn't look like it. Is there any member of the commission that wishes to remove item 2? No. Seeing none, I will entertain a motion from the commission on item number 2.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion on item number 2 as read into record by Mr. Murphy, and look for a second.
Second.
Cast your votes, please.
Four ayes, 1 absent, motion carries.
The next item on our agenda is public presentations. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the commission on any matter that is not on tonight's agenda, but over which the commission has jurisdiction. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. Please state your name for the record and spell your last name before making a presentation. Is there anyone here? Doesn't look like it. We will now move on to public hearings, we have item number 1. Mr. Murphy?
Thank you again, Madam Chair. I have with me on my right, Mr. Dennis McNamara. He's the supervising planner in the operations unit and assisted in the preparation of this case before you tonight. This case was originally scheduled before your commission on March 22nd, 2018. However, it was continued until today's hearing at the request of the applicant. The applicant was out of town and requested a 4-week continuance to make sure that they could be here before your commission this evening. The request is from Mr. Robert Gonzalez Jr. to change the zone classification from his property from A1, limited agricultural, to M1PD, a light industrial precise development combining district. The project also includes a precise development plan that would allow the operation of a contractor's storage yard. The project site itself is approximately 3.5 acres, located at 6217 East Brundage Lane in the Bakersfield area. The site is designated general commercial by the Metropolitan Bakersfield General Plan, and as I mentioned before, it is zoned A1, limited agricultural. The parcel is currently being used as a storage yard for broadband cable and service trucks. I would note for your commission that that use was established without the benefit of land use authority. We have gone to a violation hearing which authorized the case to be considered by your commission tonight.
Chairman, Mr. Murphy, could we have some pictures on the overhead, please?
Got it. All right, well, timely enough. The project site is bounded on the west by single-family residences and is bounded on the east by commercial and other residential uses. As I mentioned before, the project before your commission is a request for approval of a contractor's storage yard, a 5,000 square foot building, 2 areas dedicated to a contractor's outside storage area, a C-train, and a metal canopy. And again, there is a single-family residence on the property which serves as a caretaker's quarters. The project also includes a parking lot. Within the site plan, there is areas designated as future development. Your commission should be known that those areas identified as future development are not being authorized by any action tonight. And if at any such time the applicant has any ideas or wants to construct or establish a use in those areas, that would require a modification to the precise development plan and have to come back. Again, that is if this project ultimately is approved tonight. On page 2 of your staff report, there is a summary of the proposed project operations. According to the project applicant, there are approximately 4 flatbread truckloads of communication cable spools that are delivered to the project site per week. These spools, along with 7 work trucks, are stored on site. Each day, the work trucks leave the yard with the cable and return at night with any unused cable. The business operates Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The contractor currently has 8 employees, 7 of which drive the trucks and install the cable, and 1 who resides in the single-family residence, which serves as a caretaker for the use. Domestic water is provided by the East Niles Community District, and should the project be approved, sewage disposal is proposed to be connected through the East Niles Community District as well. If Mr. McNamara could put up the general plan map at this particular time. As I mentioned for your commission before, the project site is located in an area designated as general commercial. As you can see by this map, that general commercial designation does extend to the east of the project site, but there are a residential designation which is located to the west. If Mr. McNamara, you put up the zone map. The project site is currently zoned A1. However, there are commercial designations that are located directly east of the project site. And then again to the west is a R1 zone classification. All right, go ahead, put the map back up. Yep. So staff is recommending approval of this particular project. The M1 zone classification is consistent with the GC General Plan Map Code designation. As a reminder, any use within an M1 zone district, you are not allowed to generate any impacts that would leave the project site. With that being said, this site has been developed with the adjacent residential properties to the west in mind, and I'd like to highlight a few of the characteristics of this particular plan so that your commission can see what has been done to try to address any compatibility issues with the adjacent properties to the west. If Mr. McNamara can point out where the proposed 5,000 square foot office building is. As your commission can see, that building is located far west of the project site. The intent is that building will help provide a buffer or shield from any of the contractor storage usage that is taking place inland on the property. Mr. McNamara can point out where the contractor storage yard areas are. Additionally, the future development areas, which again are not before your commission today, but have been identified, those areas are also located west of the project site to help establish a greater buffer and distance between any of the contractor storage usage and the adjacent properties to the west. Further, the applicant has proposed a 20-foot buffer in which there will be no building or development, so there will be a minimum of 20 feet between the property line of the residential properties to the west and where the closest building could be, as there is that buffer to help establish more space between the uses. As part of our conditions, we are requiring a 6-foot-high masonry fence that will be constructed along that western boundary. That will be constructed east of the buffer, so there will be a buffer, there will be a 6-foot masonry wall, and then there will be the building and the other proposed uses. There are additional conditions required that the street frontage on East Brundage Lane, where the project site will be accessed, is going to be constructed with Type A improvements, including curb, gutter, and sidewalk. Staff does believe that these characteristics have helped to ensure compatibility with the adjacent properties that are located to the west. And as I mentioned, we are recommending approval for your commission. With that, I will read the recommendation, and I will be happy to answer any questions that your commission may have. The recommendation is to advise your commission to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to approve the zone change as requested, approve the precise development plan subject to the recommended conditions, and adopt the suggested findings as set forth in the draft resolution. That completes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions your commission may have.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Murphy, could you point out where the trash bin area is at on that plan or on the parcel of property, just so that we've got that end of it covered? Because you are next to a freeway, and I want to make sure that that bin is enclosed and that there is not trash being put into a bin that would flow onto traffic on the highway.
Commissioner Sprague, while Mr. McNamara identifies where that is, I can let you know that there is a condition that will ensure that it is surrounded, fenced, closed appropriately as part of our standard development practices. So that will be done. There's also conditions that require that it be removed appropriately.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's all the questions I have.
Okay. Is the applicant or their representative present? And also, is there anyone else here that would like to speak on the matter? Okay, thank you. Can you go ahead and state your name and spell it for the record?
My name is Fred Porter, F-R-E-D-P-O-R-T-E-R, and I'm the engineer for the applicant, Mr. Robert Gonzalez. First of all, I wanted to say this, ditto. I always appreciated Scott Denny's efforts in there. I mean, from the private sector, I think everybody loved Scott. He did a great job, and he will be sorely missed, and he will be hard to replace. He's got a lot of experience. Anyway, there's been some concerns about this particular project from the neighbors. We've had I think 3 neighbors in the area that have expressed concern, and at the last hearing we went to, there were concerns about traffic, truck traffic, school bus stop, parking concerns, parking in the street, noise, and alley. People thought there was an alley behind their property, and so one lady said, well, they're taking away our alley. So I want to address each one of those items. First of all, traffic concerns. people were concerned that this is going to create a lot of traffic. Ultimately, on this site, Mr. Gonzalez currently owns a parcel at Oswell and East Brundage, and he has his operation there. He has a little less than 3/4 of an acre of space. He has approximately 50 employees total in his operation. He lays underground communication cables throughout California. And so that's a business that he has, and him and his partner. And so he's out of space there. And this property came up. He didn't realize that you had to do zoning and general plan. General plan is okay for this, but the zoning is not okay. So he came to me, and we're preparing the application and the plans for him. First of all, the traffic concerns. Ultimately, there will be 50 employees at this site when they build the new office building and so forth. We did a little traffic analysis, is the ITE trip generation manual. 50 employees generates about 150 trips a day. That's the normal traffic trips. East Brundage Lane in the vicinity, I looked online for the Kern Council of Governments Transportation Data Management System, and currently on that road, in that vicinity of East Brundage Lane, there's 9,142 trips generated daily. So with this, when this gets built, the office building gets built, he moves all of his employees there, he will increase that traffic by 1.6% of what's currently there. East Brundage Lane, by the way, it's an arterial, a major highway. Someday, there will be 6 lanes of traffic there. So currently the level of service it's only 2 lanes operating now. There are actually enough for 2 lanes on the south side, 1 lane on the north side, but it's only being used as a 2-lane highway. The level of service currently is a level of service B. With our additional increase, it will still be at a level of service B, so it's not going to change any of that. So the truck traffic, there was a concern about big trucks coming in there, bringing equipment, materials, and so forth, and that's just not the case. In fact, I do have a photo I can put up, and if Mr. McNamara could put this up for me. This is the type of delivery truck that brings the materials in, the spools of cable that they lay. I know somebody said, well, they're going to bring semi-trucks in. Well, this isn't a semi-truck. This is just we call them a bobtail. I don't know for a better lack of a better term, but it's not a semi-truck with a big 40-foot flatbed trailer. It's a smaller truck, but that's the truck that they bring in a few times a week with their spools and materials, and then they offload those and load their work trucks up and go out in the field and work. So I wanted to make sure people understood that there's not going to be semi-trucks coming on this site. A school bus stop. People were concerned that with this project that school buses, children would be at risk from getting run over by workers' vehicles and passenger cars by this business. And so I live out that direction. I live south of there a little bit on Fairfax Road, and so I've stopped by several times on my way to work. School bus picks kids up around 7:20, 7:21 in the morning, and they bring them back before 4 o'clock in the afternoon. This business starts at 5 in the morning. I mean, at 8 in the morning, so it's 40 minutes after the school bus is already gone. And typically, I don't know about you people's businesses that you're in, but in my business, we start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and people start rolling in about 10 to 15 minutes before work. And so I'm anticipating that will be the same thing. So there will be a time period between the school bus picking the children up and this business opening. there won't be a conflict. Same thing when the people are going home for the evening. School bus have already dropped the kids off, and these people will go home after 5 o'clock. This is as Mr. Murphy indicated, this is a business from 8 to 5, 5 days a week. Parking concern. I read one of the letters that was submitted, and they said, well, gee, there's going to be parking all out in the street, because right now, Mr. Gonzalez's business, he's on less than 3/4 of an acre, and he's got 50 employees there. And so people do park along the street right away, and at East Brundage and Oswald Street. But this site's 5 times larger than his current facility that he owns. We will have more than adequate parking for all of his employees and all of his work vehicles and so forth on site. Noise. There was concern about noise. We went ahead and hired an acoustic consultant, WJV Acoustic Consultants. We work with this company, the parent company, I've been working with them for 30-some years. And they did a thorough acoustic analysis on the project. They did 3 readings on the site, and they had Mr. Gonzalez run his equipment and load and offload vehicles, and so he took the measurements. And basically his conclusion was that because this is between Highway 58 and East Brundage, which are both very noisy, it's probably a third of a mile from the railroad tracks. And then this is the flight path to Meadows Field. He said the ambient noise from all the other uses drowned out Mr. Gonzalez's operation. So when he got done with the study, he said there was really no further mitigation necessary. Environmental Health, Kern County Environmental Health reviewed the study, and they concurred that there were no further mitigation measures. We are constructing a 6-foot-high block wall along the east side of the project boundary, which the project boundary is 20 feet from the property line, east of the westerly property line. So we're constructing a block wall there to further reduce the noise. And the other issue at the violation hearing was that there was an alley behind these people's homes, and that Mr. Gonzalez built a fence and a wall and didn't allow them to go down the alley to the backs of their properties. And so we got a title report, and title report does not show any easements for any alley. We checked with Kern County surveying and engineering services, and we looked at their records. There's no record of an alley. So I think what happened was people started using that years ago as their own personal alley. I think one individual built a garage in the back of his property and was accessing it from this private properties owner. This property used to be a veterinary hospital. And the vet had a 20-foot strip. He had his pipe fence 20 feet off the property line, and that used to have access to the southwest corner of his property. So anyway, and that's what it was for originally. When Mr. Gonzalez bought the property, he said that people were continually dumping trash on that strip because it was accessible to the street. So he built the wall and a gate to prevent that from happening. As he said, he was continually cleaning up that strip. People were dumping the trash. So there was never an alley on the property. And so I wanted the people to understand that. We didn't mention that at the last hearing, but I know people are still confused. They think they have an alley, and it's not. But what Mr. Gonzalez has agreed to do, because he realizes there's 3 people that I think have accessed this over the years, he said, I'll leave that buffer and He'll open the gate. He doesn't want them just to open the gate on their own terms. He wants to be able to open it. They can call him up. He said he would give them his personal phone number. They could contact him. He will open the gate. He's trying to protect his property, and I know especially in today's world, we have a problem with theft. And I don't care whether it's out in the country, whether it's on East Brundage, whether it's downtown where my office is. It's a continual problem in today's world. So he wants to make sure he secures his property. So he's agreed to do that. The last thing I'd like to mention, this is a general plan for GC. We're doing an M1PD, which is consistent with the GC designation. There are a lot of other uses that could be put in on this property, retail, shopping center, and other uses generating a whole lot more traffic and a whole lot more hours of work. I mean, if you get a shopping center in a facility like this, they're going to be up starting 6, 7 in the morning and go to 10 at night, 7 days a week. This is the normal business hours, 8 to 5, 5 days a week. So with that being said, if anybody has any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer those. And Mr. Gonzalez said he will answer any questions that you might have. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any? Ms. Oviatt?
Chairman Poole, could you have Mr. Murphy put the picture up of the site plan and explain how this block wall and this gate works? The notes are relatively small on this plot plan. If there's any way to zoom in and actually walk us through, where is the block wall going? Where is this gate? And how would these people get access to their backyards is what we would like you to walk through.
Commissioners, so this is my noted version. As you can see, the area on the west of the project site, I highlighted pink. That pink or red color represents the 20-foot buffer that is being established between the west boundary of the property and where all of the development will occur. Regarding the access and the easement, again, that is not a specific condition of the PD plan. We believe that was up to the project applicant if they wanted to provide that access. Given that all the residential properties take their official access to their property on the street west of their house, staff was concerned about having any specific condition or requirement that access be granted by going along that particular easement would be inappropriate. But the gate in which Mr. Porter referred to would be at the northern end, and would be able to have a gate constructed there so that any of those residences would be able to travel down that 20-foot buffer to, for whatever purposes they may have. The block wall will be located on the east side of the buffer, so between the buffer and where any of the development is. So if Mr. McNamara can just run the pen along the line, that is where the 6-foot-high masonry wall would be constructed. So it would be in between the development and the buffer.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Madam Chairman,
Go right ahead, Commissioner Sprague.
I have a question for our legal rep, Mr. Hall. I'm aware of people having ingress and egress on property that's not theirs to access their properties over a period of years and acquiring access by prescription. So I don't know how many years they've accessed this area unobstructed, but since it's been gated off for how long I don't know, is that an issue that we should be looking at? I appreciate the applicant providing access to this through a gate that's accessible by the neighbors there to access their properties. I'm just wondering, is there any legal complications from a prescription mode that we should be worried about?
Commissioner, through the chair, that is not, we are not in the proper venue for that. Whether or not that exists would be a judicial action, and we don't have any ability to comment on that or create a prescriptive right, or we shouldn't even be considering it, frankly.
So do we just kind of disregard that? Mr. Oviatt, you're raising your hand?
Yes, we should disregard it tonight. We don't have any judicial court filing or anything saying that such an easement does exist. If there was some easement, then we would need to consider it. But at this stage, it's not for us to create easements.
So it would be a civil issue
That is correct.
between the parties. Okay. Ms. Ott, through the chair,
Commissioners,
Ms. Oviatt?
Commissioner Sprague through the chair. However, since we're not going to talk about an easement, we are going to talk about the site plan that the applicant has brought forward and made a representation of where the block wall. So I would like Mr. Murphy to amend condition 5I to add the following words. It says, when adjacent to property zoned for single-family residential purposes, a 6-foot-high solid masonry wall be constructed between the proposed project and the adjacent property. I'm recommending that you add language that says, at the location shown on the precise development plan, such that your commission and ultimately the board could be assured that the representations made by the applicant will be fulfilled if that is something that is a basis for your decision.
Okay.
And I am correct that it's actually a note on, Mr. Murphy, is a note on the plan that says that's the location of the wall? Is that what L is on there, that note?
Ms. Oviatt, we actually did not find where the location was specifically on the plan, which is why we took time to point it out today. There is a note that shows there is an existing block wall on the north of the project site, but I could not find anywhere on the plan where it specifically showed that a block wall was located at that location. That was verified through our discussions with the project applicant.
Okay, then my question is, it says proposed CMU block wall height to be determined by acoustic study, item L, on the second page of this site plan, not the one that you have up, but the other one. Your commission may want to ask the engineer if that is, it's item L, and it's shown on the side of the 20-foot buffer that you indicated.
Ms. Oviatt, I actually just see where you're looking. And yes, I believe that is correct then. I did not see that L location right there, but it is pointed out right at that particular buffer that we just described in our presentation.
I would also ask that you direct that it be changed from the word proposed to required. It's not a proposed CMU block wall on this site plan, it is a required block wall. Just to provide your commission some comments and recommendations if this is part of a basis for your decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. I know there was at least one person in the audience that wished to speak on the project. Can you come up and state your name and spell your last name for the record, please?
My name is Mike Padilla, P-A-D-I-L-L-A.
Thank you.
I live in that west side.
Can we
Barra
put
Mall.
the, yeah, thank you.
I've been there for 20 years already. Where I live, it's very quiet, day and night. And I love the way my home was when I bought it. It was nice and quiet, no houses behind me or nothing. When the Mount Vernon vet had the place, you had his animals there, his cows, a buffalo, a couple of horses. It was nice. Now I'm kind of worried they closed my entry to my backyard now. I have an RV parking in the back with double gates in the back. I have a trailer that's parked in the front driveway right now. And now I'm kind of worried now I can't get it back there in the back. And another thing, having a business back there, I had a little taste of what the trucks that were being there, because they were there like a couple of months ago before they're not there now. I heard a lot of trucks beeping back and forth with their beeping of when they go in reverse and trucks when they start their trucks early in the morning, because sometimes in the summertime, I always open up the bathroom window because it's faced towards them. I hear a lot of the trucks running. There's times where I kind of smell like diesel fuel or fumes from the trucks, then all the beeping from the trucks. And then talking about the buildings being put there, like in the wintertime, I could see the mountains, the sunshine, and I could see the mountain view. But now that they're talking about putting the buildings, I'm kind of afraid they're gonna block all my viewing and all that. Then when you're saying to put in the buildings, when they put their buildings, are they gonna have windows? Or are they gonna be facing my backyard, invading my privacy? That was another thing. And then when you guys were talking about the buildings put in there. And it's a quiet neighborhood. Now seeing all this going on, I'm kind of worried about it. Kind of don't like what's gonna be there. It's not gonna be my quiet neighborhood. Like I've been there 20 years. I moved there since 1997. And the access of being there, my neighbor next door, she was telling me that they had 10 feet behind that wall. And the veterinarian had the other 10 feet. That's why we had that access. Because even my neighbor next door put a slab of cement because her husband has a antique car that he takes to the car shows, and they park it behind that wall because they put a slab of cement back there. And I kind of figured, well, it must be true because Dr. Reno, the veterinarian hospital, when his maintenance guy used to clean the easement, they only did their side. They never did our side. So we had to come on with our weed eaters to clean our side because we get grass butt up to here. And the tractor, they just do their side along the corrals. And that's why we kind of figured, well, then it must be true that we do owe 10 feet behind that wall because they never wanted to clean that side with the tractor. If it was their property, they would have cleaned right behind our walls with the tractor, but they only did their side. So everybody else in the neighborhood, they just cleaned their walls clean all the weeds behind their wall. So now I'm kind of seeing all that. My neighborhood's gonna go away, being quiet again, and worry about all them trucks going up and down. And my neighborhood is a quiet neighborhood. If anybody makes any noise, I would make the noise if anybody made any noise in that neighborhood. And being there 20 years, having access to that alleyway, I thought maybe it would be grandfathered into being there because my neighbor next door, he has trailers that he does little construction, like repairing homes. He has 2 trailers right now. He got 2 of them sitting in his front yard because he can't get into the back. When he does call in to let them know that he wants to put his trailers in the back, he said they don't answer the phone or he can't get his trailers back there, so he has them all parked in the front. So he got tired of calling them up because they don't open up the gates for him. So that's where I stand right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here that'd like to speak on this item? Any commissioner questions? I have a question for staff. In the requirements, there's a mention of 18 on-site parking spaces. The applicant's representative mentioned I think 50 employees. I'm assuming that has something to do with people coming on and off the site, but I'd just like to get an explanation as to the reasoning behind the number of parking spaces and an assurance that that's sufficient.
Chairman Poole, staff was unaware that there were going to be 50 employees. It was our representation that there would not be 50 employees. The parking was based on the proposed usage, based on the zoning ordinance. Tonight's statement that there would be 50 employees in that office is the first that staff has been made aware that that is the number of proposed employees that would be on the site.
So what do we do with that? Do we need more parking spaces or?
Commissioner Poole, we have a couple different options. One, tonight's action is advisory. Clearly, when I heard that statement, that was going to be one of the first comments and questions I spoke to the project applicant about, where we would verify specifically the use and how many employees were going to be there and whether or not that would be the case. Clearly, if it was confirmed that there would be that number of employees, then we would have to look at the number of parking spaces based on that. The other option is that you can speak to the project applicant. Maybe they can give some information tonight that might bring some additional information there. And then the third option is that you could always continue the project for a couple weeks to resolve some of these particular issues, and we can come back with a revised site plan that adequately addresses that and having all of that information specifically addressed.
Chairman Poole, I have one last thing. Those were all good ideas. And a last idea is that your commission could also consider modifying 5D, as in dog. It says a minimum of 18 on-site parking spaces provided. They clearly have enough room. Instead of having future development, future buildings, they would have parking. So you could recommend, if you wanted to take action tonight, since this does go on to the Board of Supervisors, that 5D be rewritten to read something like the minimum number of parking spaces to accommodate 50 employees shall be shown on the site plan. And we take off the 18, and the site plan shall be, we would make it fit that there is, because there clearly is more room on this parcel that we could make it accommodate. And perhaps the engineers for the applicant has some thoughts on this.
Please go ahead and state your name for the record again. Thanks.
Fred Porter. Our intent was that initially they're going to build for the 8 people that they have there now. And someday in the future, we have space for future development, and that's when they will develop additional parking at that point in time. But there's no need for it today. But someday there will be, and that's when he moves his whole operation there. That may be 2 years from now, maybe 5 years from now. I don't know the answer to that. But that's why we have additional vacant space on the property for future parking. It'll be parking and landscaping for the parking.
So with the development you're proposing currently,
there won't be a building.
There are going to be 8 people.
There won't be a building, but there will be all those parking stalls currently.
So you're going to have 18 parking spaces for 8 people.
For the people and their trucks and their equipment. So that's what the initial plan is. But someday when they move there, and he moves his whole operation there, we're going to have to do additional parking. So.
And that would show up under a precise development plan on the future development areas.
Yes.
The parking would be required at that point to accommodate the people that are going to be there.
That's
Is that correct?
That's correct. And certainly, I mean, we don't want to build additional parking now because it's not necessary. But if there's a condition that can be placed on there that when they build the building, they will need adequate parking, same number of parking stalls as they do employees. I mean, that's fair enough.
Okay, thank you. I do have a follow-up question, and you said it twice, and it's not that I don't believe you, but you said that the business operates from 8 to 5. So this is a construction business, right? I just wanted to follow up and clarify that.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porter.
Are there any additional questions for the applicant before I close the public hearing? Doesn't look like it. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing. I'm interested in comments and potential action from my fellow commissioners.
Well, Madam Chair, I'll
go right ahead.
Buzz in here. I think staff and the engineer, Mr. Porter, have done a pretty good job about trying to lay this particular usage project application out for us and to buffer it from noise and trying to help the people there that live next to this project. So I'm satisfied with everything that's been presented here in this plan and to us tonight. I think when it comes to parking for what's required to go in under this application, that it's adequate. I think that the fence, the block wall, and having the buffer zone there is fine. I'm hopeful that access to the neighbor's property can be worked out between the applicant and the neighbors without doing any civil actions in order to get ingress and egress to those sites. But it's not on our docket tonight, and we have a project in front of us that is pretty precise. So I'm satisfied with that and willing to approve it the way it is laid out, and I think at a future time it'll come back in front of us as they do precise development plan for the rest of it with adequate parking and adequate facilities and landscape that's there. So I'm supporting the application that's in at this point, and we'll listen to any other commissioners that have any comments.
I'll make one, if that's okay.
Of course.
You know, I appreciate the resident who came out and spoke to us, and I just wanted to make sure it's clear, and Mr. Murphy, if you could chime in on this. Mr. Murphy, did you mention that the way that the property right now is zoned, that they could put in a commercial, like a strip mall or something?
Commissioner Louie, through the chair, the underlying general plan map code designation is general commercial. And there are a number of different general commercial types of uses that are, would be authorized under the general plan. It still has to go through it's still a zone day one, so there still has to be some sort of zone change that would be done and required for any of those particular uses. But the underlying intent, based on the general plan designation, is that this is in a location for some sort of commercial type of development.
Right, and it's always been like that. So when it was originally in the general plan, the original intent was to have that area be general commercial. So I think it's important that the resident realize that piece of property right there, the intent was always to allow for something commercial. And this particular project, I think, is going to be a lot less intrusive, a lot less noisy, and a lot less burdensome than what could potentially go in there probably today. And so, you know, I think it's a good fit for that location, and I support it.
Yeah, agreed. I think staff has done a great job designing the project and addressing at least the obvious concerns about maintaining that path that people have used. There is appears to be no actual right to that use, and so I appreciate the fact that they are willing to work and put up a barrier there so that people can still use that access. I do respect also that you're going to try to protect your property, so I think that's going a little bit above and beyond. It is obviously compatible in terms of zoning, so I would also support.
Commissioners, do you wish to have 5I clarified, that the location of the block wall should be as shown on the site plan?
I would.
Makes sense to me.
Okay.
That's okay with the applicant, right? The applicant's okay with that. They're shaking their head yes.
So can I get a motion to that effect?
Anyone? Or should I?
I'll make the motion.
Go ahead.
I'll make the motion to approve this project as read into the record with that change to 5I.
Second.
Cast your votes, please.
4 ayes, 1 absent, motion carries.
Where are we? We're at adjournment. There's no right of appeal, right?
Chairman Poole, there is not. This item is a recommendation. Therefore, there will be a public notice that goes out when it is going to be considered by the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I would make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're adjourned.